far as the currency devaluations, I've been complaining about that for a long time. And I believe that we will all eventually, and probably very much sooner than a lot of people understand or think, we will be all at a level playing field. Because that's the only way it's fair. That's the only way that you can fairly compete in trade and other things.
Stock market crash and economic collapse begins. This is an economic collapse. It's not normal. It will be very different than a recession because there ain't no dang recovery. There's only a deadly collapse from which we can't get up. It will be that severe, yes. Trump's been setting up the Fed to take the blame for the economic collapse. Now Trump is being set up by ex-Fed presidents to take the blame. Ex-Fed President, New York, Bill Dudley, has written an op-ed in Bloomberg which lays out a fall guy case.
By playing with U.S. interest rates the way they do and secretly supporting Chinese currency manipulation with their central bank friends in China, the Federal Reserve is trying to slow our growth, allow China to keep up with the tariff payments they structurally cannot afford, and give China some time to hold their position until 2020 with the hope that something like impeachment or a staged recession happens in the meantime. In other words, they are trying to stop the economic growth we got from Trump to strengthen China.
Nobody can give China economy go to stable, reliable, impossible. They now jump in. They cheated the world. They make a fake economy.
Well, the economy was already slowing.
It's very slowing.
Before we went into trying to put together a border adjustable tax or a tariff has just made it a little worse. The timing of the Trump administration's tariffs is not good for China.
Yes.
I don't know if it was intentional or not.
Very bad.
Right, but it's very bad.
If countries are cheating by manipulating their currency, wouldn't that be a perfect situation to apply a level of tariffs?
I think we are taking the moral high road by identifying currency manipulation as an unfair trade practice. Then our only recourse is to say then we're going to have to do something as well. Unless we call them on it, we can't begin to seek these broader remedies that I think would start to bring about a level international monetary playing field, and that's fundamental to authentically free trade.
So China, which is it? Are you going to defeat your franchise of the deep state, cut ties with the satanic cabal, and play ball with the president? China will soon have to decide if playing the clock against Trump with an economy protected by the GE play while tariff bills pile up.
Now remember, this is not to repair the central bank economy. Trump's not trying to make this economy whole. He needs it to survive long enough so he can get reelected in 2020. Whoever controls the economic narrative basically is the winner.
What's important to focus on now is where we're headed next, not how we got here. And I'm convinced that where we're headed next is toward much more scalable digital currency systems, which do not rely on a proof-of-work validated blockchain to secure the network.
Chris, how would you describe what the Internet of Value is and what the sort of insight is to get us there?
Yeah, so a lot of it came from kind of the early work you guys did with pathfinding, and again, having this, anything of value can be traded. That kind of was the germ of it. But kind of stepping way back, if you look at the real problem in the world today, a lot of people point to globalization as being, not working for people. And we would say, no, it's not that it's not working, it's just it's a work in progress, right? It's incomplete. So we could have a real globalization needs interoperability in, 3 core things, right? Data, goods, shipping, and money. And the problem is it only has interoperability in data, obviously the internet, and shipping since the 50s with the shipping container, which creates interoperability between port to other port, ship to train to truck. But you don't have that with money. Money networks don't interoperate. And if you have that, now billions of people are onboarded into a real working, kind of system of globalization. And that's upon us. I think that's really what we're trying to build here.
You should see all the details in front of you now.
Fantastic. Time is of the essence. The deadline for our first shipment goes out this afternoon.
We've also just sent Mr. Chinaka the payment request, which is everything he needs.
Yeah. Looks like he's got it.
Taxi! Hey guys, look, I know it's getting late there. I can track the payment and keep you posted.
Oh, there's no need for you to do that, Ian. Thank you. Payment is complete. We've just got access to the funds.
Perfect.
But in a world now, this kind of internet of value, combining things like ILP and XRP, that is absolutely possible. That is, so frictionless and so fast, it completely changes the economics. And then beyond, those billions of people that need to send 50 cents, think about the trillions of devices and code that needs to be able to send, 10,000th of a cent. That is also enabled through what's going on here. So pretty exciting.
I think the vision is to be able to make an international payment as cheap and easy as pulling up a web page, like something that you would do without even thinking about the mechanics or the costs or who has to do what. It's just so automatic and so cheap and so scalable, and there's so many of them happening that it's almost invisible. You don't even think about doing it.
Yeah, almost like the value is moving with the data, just right on top of each other. And that is a world that we can have, but not with the infrastructure you have today. You've got kind of an internet world, kind of working with a pre-internet world of money, and those things are not lining up. So this is a big bottleneck for the world. If we can push through this, that's it. And again, blockchains are not the only answer. They're a subset of the solution, but the broader solution combines this kind of value interoperability protocols with a super fast and efficient digital asset, and then with some kind of mechanism for programming how that value moves around.
The reason that cryptocurrencies have continued to use blockchain for all these years, despite its many serious deficiencies, is very simple. So far, nobody had figured out a way to make distributed ledger work without those deficiencies while still keeping the design completely decentralized. Already, several companies claim to have solved this engineering challenge, and they claim that their products already offer truly decentralized, permissionless distributed ledger functionality without the abysmal performance and reckless waste of computing resources inherent to blockchain. The reason this is so important is that we finally have the technology needed to engineer scalable digital currency systems that really could stand a chance of becoming major currencies within the global financial system, or someday even replacing the US dollar as the world's global reserve currency. These are things that a blockchain-based cryptocurrency system like Bitcoin could never have hoped to achieve. Put another way, the stage has been set for digital currency to finally scale to a level where digital currency systems could meaningfully compete with conventional currencies for prominence in the global financial system.
Mark Carney, hope Sarah's sitting down because he is calling for the creation of a new virtual currency that could ease the reliance of the world on the US dollar, which he says creates some of the problems that we have today. He's pointing out that, for example, half of all international trade is priced in dollars, but the US, that's 5 times greater than the US contribution to world output, along with 2/3 of world securities priced in dollars. And he says the problem there is that US interest rate policy, US exchange rate policy becomes exported to other parts of the world. And he says that is not the optimal way to run things.
A lot of people don't really understand what a global reserve currency is or why it's important. One aspect of it is that it makes sense to choose a standard currency for the settlement of international trade. And the US dollar has served in that role since the end of World War II. But the arguably more important definition of the phrase reserve currency is that it's the currency in which central banks hold their foreign exchange reserves, is that the nation issuing the global reserve currency enjoys an immense artificial demand for its currency because everyone else in the world needs both the reserve currency itself in order to settle international trade, and they also need sovereign bonds denominated in that currency to serve as central bank reserve assets.
Why are we having so many problems related to the US being strong but the rest of the world being weak? And he says that's because so much of the world is priced in dollars, so the theory of flexible exchange rates resolving these imbalances is not working.
Way back in the 1950s, economist Robert Triffin explained why global reserve currencies never last forever. See the Wikipedia entry for Triffin Dilemma if you want the gory details. The gist of it is that the country issuing the reserve currency will have the opportunity to borrow and spend recklessly without suffering the immediate consequences that other non-reserve issuer nations would suffer if they tried to do the same thing.
And so this is within the set of issues we're looking at the bank. This is if not the top, one of the top 3 priorities. We think that there are things that we can do with our core infrastructure, our payment system, and the access to other central bank facilities that can materially change the access to finance of SMEs. Not by us, not directly through us, but creating the framework for new SME providers to be very active here. Now, I'm not fully laying out exactly what we're contemplating doing because we want to make sure we have everything lined up. So, as a small commercial, I would say watch this space over the course of 2019 for something substantial on that.
The process takes decades to play out, but eventually the reserve currency issuing nation becomes so indebted that other countries no longer trust the creditworthiness of the reserve currency. At that point, the rest of the world abandons the incumbent global reserve currency and chooses a new one. And to be sure, pressure has been building in international circles to reduce dependency on the US dollar as the kingpin of the international monetary system.
Making US companies competitive. We need to create a level playing field for US companies to be able to compete in the world, and they just haven't had that opportunity.
We've got European engine, we've got the Chinese engine, we've got the US engine of this economy. Multipolar world, you need a multipolar currency. The question is, how do you get there? And I laid out some ideas of how you would get there.
Hey, wait a minute. Back to your question, is XRP the next Bitcoin? If we work with the system to solve this problem, and we can solve that problem at scale, a problem measured in the trillions of dollars, then there's a lot of opportunity to create value in XRP.
This is why Trump is creating the parallel economy. Trump and the Patriots are going to transition us out of this system into a sound money system. It's going to show that this debt-ridden system is worthless. And sound money, well, that's the shining light. And this is where we are headed, and the central banks know it.
So I think the role of the disruptors and anything that is using distributed ledger technology, whether you call it crypto, assets, currencies, or whatever, and it's far from the bitcoins that we used to talk about a year ago, that is clearly shaking the system.
And when you think about all the people who send money, they may work in one country, send money back home. They generally do that through organizations that charge 5 to 10%. Yeah. There is a need, whether it's a Libra or something else, to democratize the exchange of foreign currencies. Today, with computers and electronic market,
there shouldn't be that.
It should be 10 basis points, 5 basis points.
That
it's not percent. And so I actually believe the idea around Libra, I don't think we need to create a new currency, but the technology to instantaneous calibrate all the currencies, that should be done.
I think we are about to see massive disruptions, but clearly the way in which the new technologies are lowering the cost to make financial transactions more accessible, even in very small numbers, for people who do not earn much, who do not deposit much, and who do not borrow much, I think is already massively disruptive.
Having thoughtful regulation and working with governments. We announced the fact that we're working with the Bank of England as an example. We announced some things we've done with the US Fed and their faster payments task force. We're going to keep working with the system because I think the early days of Bitcoin were all about down with government and down with banks. Ripple has been, look, governments aren't going away, banks aren't going away. Let's work with the system to dramatically improve the way and reduce the friction for how money moves globally.
The genius, if you will, of cryptocurrencies is that, as we all know, they're distributed. They cut out the central banks, they cut out the banks, and they're ideally directly peer-to-peer between you and I. And so the challenge for payment systems is to move in that direction, so we can instantaneously move money from my account to your account to the publican's account, the guy who runs the pub, directly. And what we're doing at the Bank of England is we're reorganizing the core of the system in a way that allows new payment providers to just plug in. They could be using distributed ledger technology, they can use other technologies, and we're in a position where these innovative so-called PSPs will be able to provide those types of services. You're seeing similar innovation amongst banks in the US, other places, and so this is coming.
Trump and the Patriots, they've already have this planned out. They already know that they're going to discard this whole central bank system. We don't need it. And their debt, guess what? Once you open the books of the Federal Reserve and you audit them and show that they weren't doing things in the best interest of the people, which is part of their mandate, guess what? That debt, null and void. Boom.
In closing here, I just want to say that there are a lot of things that are coming together in September. I'm not suggesting a shoot to the moon moment in price. That's not what I'm talking about. I have talked about during this whole show and all of my shows about fundamentals. Fundamentals are the real things that are taking place that ultimately become price drivers. When you see Susan Friedman from the U.S. Treasury Department leave and join Ripple.
Exciting times at Ripple. Thrilled to welcome, this is Susan Friedman, okay, as International Policy Counsel. Susan joins our government relations team from the U.S. Treasury and brings incredible legal and policy experience.
When you see Ron Hammond, who drafted the Token Taxonomy Act, leave and go and work with Ripple from working with Warren Davidson since 2017, right?
And this is big time, folks. Ron Hammond, excited to announce that as of today, I am the new manager of government relations for Ripple. Thrilled to bring all of my legislative experience, including crafting the Token Taxonomy Act, to the team.
When you see those things happen, ask yourself, I guess the guy that drafted the Token Taxonomy Act must think that Ripple and XRP are the most standard and compliant token out of the 2,500 plus tokens in the crypto space, or why in the hell would he go work for them? Is there a bigger expert on the Token Taxonomy Act than the guy who drafted it? Is there a bigger expert who might know or should know which coin is to stand out in the crypto space than Ron Hammond?